people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Bumgarner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. In my previous video, we talked about what the future might hold for Mikaela Mayer. Less postulating is necessary when it comes to Natasha and what the future might hold for her. She's not ruling out a rematch with Mikaela, but she's currently eyeing Jessica McCaskill. For her part, Jonas believes that she did enough to win the fight and retain her title. I thought I was comfortably 2 rounds up at the end, Jonas said. I respect people's opinion. Everyone's entitled to one, but the result matters on the day, and I got the result. All in all, I won. I grinded it out. I made it a little bit uncomfortable for myself in the mid-rounds, but again, I won. That's all I can say. I won.
Just because Natasha got a gift decision on Saturday, that is, I think she got a gift decision, that doesn't mean I'm not still a fan of her. Even good fighters, very good fighters, get gift decisions. I think Devin got a gift decision in the Lomachenko fight.
I think he was very lucky to walk away with the decision in the Lomachenko fight, as Natasha was very lucky to walk away with the decision this past weekend. I think Canelo Alvarez got a gift draw in the first Golovkin fight. I mean, it does happen. And I don't all of a sudden hate Natasha because I think Mikaela got robbed, but rest assured, she did get robbed.
People weren't saying what they were saying after the fight because of how close the fight was or how competitive. It looked one-sided all throughout the second half.
As far as her next move, Jonas wants to capture some more world titles, specifically the WBA title, which is currently being held by the WBC-WBA Unified Champion Jessica McCaskill. Where do we begin? I think an Anfield fight is a big shout. I think we've got a great set of fighters who are born and bred here, as well as the likes of Adam Azim, who is a big Liverpool fan, Jonas said. So yeah, hopefully we can get that. And I think the only belt that I am missing in my collection is the WBA title, so that automatically homes me in on Jessica McCaskill. As it stands, Natasha never won a WBA title of any kind at any weight she's campaigned. 130, 154, or currently at 147.
Now she's targeting Jessica's.
While Jessica's still got it, but Jessica is set to return to action in defense of both her WBA and WBC titles in April. Opposite the ring, Ivana Habazin, who will have home field advantage as the fight is set to go down in her native Croatia.
We've talked about that.
Natasha continued, so yeah, hopefully we can get that. And I think the only belt that I am missing in my collection is the WBA, so that automatically homes me in on Jessica McCaskill. Jessica, like Natasha, she got a gift of sorts. She got a gift draw in the Sandy Ryan fight, the Sandy Ryan unification match. Here today, she's very fortunate to still have her 2 alphabet titles that she can use as leverage to get herself a big purse with Natasha, but she's got to make it past Ivana first. And given that Jessica's getting up there in age and how she looked opposite the ring Sandy Ryan,
and that she's going to be the away fighter in her very next fight, she's got to be on her P's and Q's. Even if Ivana Habazin has lost literally every step-up fight she's ever had, now is a very opportune time for Ivana to fight Jessica. So Jessica's got to stay sharp. She's got to be switched on.
Jessica McCaskill has already beaten better fighters than Ivana Habazin. She beat the #1 super lightweight at the time, Erica Farias, 2 times. She beat the #1 welterweight at the time, then unbeaten Cecilia Brækhus, who was coming up on breaking Joe Louis's record for consecutive successful title defenses. And Jessica beat her, not just once, but twice. If she's half the fighter that she used to be, then she should beat Ivana Habazin, and if she does, there's some money waiting for her in a Jonas fight.
So let's say Jessica wins. We can see she's not with Matchroom anymore. She goes into the Jonas fight.
Jessica McCaskill is a very different fighter from the fighter that Natasha Jonas just fought. She's not a newbie to this weight. She's not a newbie to these weights. I wager she's a stronger puncher than Mikaela Mayer, even if she's not the boxer that Mikaela Mayer is. Form has never been Jessica's strong suit. Pressure fighting.
That's what she does, and that's what she's good at, often described as being a limited brawler, a limited scrapper with sloppy footwork and sloppy punches.
Yeah.
It's worked for her.
Could it work against Natasha Jonas, a very strong boxer puncher who's got firepower of her own? Natasha is getting up there in age. She's in her late 30s, but then again, so is Jessica McCaskill.
And Natasha Jonas did get a gift in the last fight.
Yeah, she did, but then again, so did Jessica McCaskill. Jessica lost that Sandy Ryan fight. Anybody who saw that fight knows that. The fight between her and Natasha would be for 3 of the 4 major titles at this weight, not including Sandy Ryan's WBO title.
It's not for undisputed, but it could be for the Ring Magazine and lineal titles. But Jessica's got to make it through Ivana.
That's the first order of business, and you have to focus on the fighter that's in front of you. That's the fighter that's in front of her. Men's lightweight and super lightweight news. Looking back on a tweet that WBA champion Rolly Romero posted 1 or 2 days ago saying Al Haymon is better than drug-addicted con man Oscar De La Hoya. Amazon is better than DAZN. You know, he's angry that things didn't work out with Ryan. We talked about all of that, but to that, Gervonta Davis responded. And Gervonta Davis said, LOL, dumbass thinks it's Al. It's Floyd, dweeb. He didn't catch on yet.
What is he saying?
Sounds like what he's saying is that Al Haymon is not who people think he is. I mean, that he's not really the one in charge, that the one with the final say is actually Floyd. Floyd is the one in charge. I mean, that's what I took from it. That's what it sounds like. When Gervonta Davis says, LOL, dumbass thinks it's Al. It's Floyd, dweeb. It's Floyd that what?
What?
It's Floyd that pulls the strings. It's Floyd who's really in charge. What is Gervonta Davis hinting at? And if Floyd really is the puppet master here, and it's not Al, then why the misdirection? Why do so many people think that Al Haymon is the one running things? The fighters themselves, they're the ones that have been saying for years, call Al. If you want to do a fight, call Al. But does the act of calling Al mean that Al is really the one who's in charge?
Does it?
It's interesting. It's intriguing.
Why would so many people be under the impression that Al's the one running things if it's really Floyd?
It could be a deliberate misrepresentation of the hierarchy over there on PBC Island. Floyd doesn't want to micromanage all these guys, and he doesn't want all these guys coming to him with all of their gripes and all of their problems. He would rather they go to someone else. They go to Al.
I'm just bouncing ideas around because if you're deliberately misrepresenting the pecking order over there, that would be one of the benefits, one of the perks. That all these guys don't bother you because they don't even know you're the one in charge. All the decisions, they're made by you. And not Al.
But in the mind of a boxing fan, Al Haymon is tantamount to Kaiser Soze in The Usual Suspects, and everything they think of him is a figment of their own imagination, because in reality, it's Floyd who's in charge, and Al gets his marching orders from Floyd. And that's not saying that Al Haymon and everything about him is completely made up, that he's a lore, just a fairy tale. I mean, I'm not going to go that far. There are pictures of the man. There are pictures of Floyd Mayweather with Al Haymon.
And he's a real person. He is a real person. Errol Spence Jr. said that he met him. Bob Arum said that he met him. More recently, Canelo Alvarez was said to have met up with Al Haymon to ink the deal.
3-fight deal, the PBC deal that he signed. You know, the one he's still got 2 fights left on. I mean, Al Haymon is a real person. I think that he's a real person. But the implication here is that he may not be the one in charge. In truth, it's neither here nor there, because none of this changes the PBC's current situation. None of it really matters. They're not operating at the same level, with the same level of resources that they used to in previous years, when they had not just 1, but 2 major broadcast partners in Fox and Showtime, and a few years before that, when they got all of that Waddle and Reed money that they frittered away. They're not here today operating at the same level that they used to, irrespective of who's in charge. So does it really matter?
It doesn't.
I will admit that it does answer certain questions about the PBC's inner workings and its infrastructure. I remember right before Fox walked out of boxing, decided not to renew the deal with the PBC.
Right.
Several of the pay-per-views, the last few that they did on the network,
Right.
Marcos Villegas, who was in production at the time, he said that Fox wasn't paying for any of those shows. They weren't footing the bill. All they were doing was distributing them throughout the life of the deal, what remained of it. And I thought to myself, well, if Fox didn't pay for those shows, who did? Because somebody had to.
Who would have the money?
Floyd would have the money. And why was Floyd so angry after Canelo Alvarez knocked out Caleb Plant? He quite randomly started trashing him right after that. Did the money to pay Canelo come from Floyd? And was Floyd angry that it was a one-off, that it wasn't a multi-fight deal? You paid Canelo to come over to your side of things for one fight, and he took your money, and then he left.
Remember that after the Plant fight, he went back to Matchroom, where he fought Dmitry Bivol and Golovkin for a third time, then John Ryder.
Is that why Floyd was angry? Because you paid this guy all this money to fight Caleb Plant on your side of things, and then he left. He went back over to Matchroom. Is that what that was about? I don't know, and I really don't think it matters. It doesn't matter who's in charge. Floyd, Al, their situation overall, still the same.
You still don't have any cards coming up in the month of January or February. The only card we know you're doing is supposed to be at the end of March. You still only have 12 to 14 fight dates, which may not be enough to accommodate all your fighters.
Whoever's in charge, whoever's really in charge. Floyd, Al, whoever it is. I don't envy them. Men's junior middleweight news, it appears that what was supposed to be the Tszyu versus Erickson Lubin fight, it's off. Erickson Lubin has withdrawn from negotiations to face Tszyu in March. As a result, Tszyu's representatives will turn their attention to either Terence Crawford or Virgil Ortiz, with both expressing interest in traveling to Australia. I said it before and I'll say it again. For Tszyu to come to America from Australia, well, you don't come all that way for a guy like Erickson Lubin. Erickson Lubin who said, wait, what? This is news to me. I was waiting on the date.
How could Erickson Lubin have withdrawn from negotiations with Tszyu and he didn't know about it?
Well, it's because Erickson Lubin doesn't negotiate his own fights. He likely has someone negotiating on his behalf, and when things fell apart, he was the last to know. If you've been following Tszyu's career the last 3 or 4 years, you'll know that his team doesn't waste any time. If they have to move on, they will move on. When Jermell Charlo was quote-unquote injured, they didn't waste any time scheduling Tim another fight. They're not going to let somebody stifle their progress, their plans.
And for a guy like Erickson Lubin, yeah, that's not supposed to be a long, drug-out set of negotiations.
It's not. Erickson Lubin is one loss away from becoming a gatekeeper, a journeyman. He was knocked out in a few seconds by Jermell Charlo. He's banged up severely by Sebastian Fundora.
Got a gift in his last fight.
Another one. Another fighter that got a gift in their last fight. No, Erickson Lubin is not the kind of guy you're supposed to spend a lot of time on. So if his team or his management or whoever it was withdrew from negotiations for a Tszyu fight, so be it. The show must go on.
And now they're looking at either Virgil Ortiz or Terence Crawford.
Virgil just came back. Virgil just moved up to junior middle, really middle, in his last fight, as it was above the junior middleweight limit. And Virgil has only boxed for 1 round in the last 12 months. So I happen to think that the people at Golden Boy Promotions would want him to have 1 or 2 more fights before they'd put him in that one, because Tim has been active and Virgil hasn't.
I don't think the Ortiz fight is next, but Crawford might be free. Things don't seem to be working out for what was supposed to be a Spence rematch, and really, I don't want to see one. I don't think there's a need. Spence got beaten half to death in the first fight. There doesn't need to be a second.
And who would you sell it to? Who would buy it, given how lopsided the first fight was? Now, I could go for a Crawford versus Tim Tszyu fight, the opportunity for Terence Crawford to become a 4-division champion and leave the sport on a high. I like the Tszyu fight better than a Spence rematch. I like the Tszyu fight better than a Boots fight.
Boots' resume does not impress me. Styling on overmatched opponents, I mean, seriously.
That's all he's doing. All this hullabaloo about this guy because of what? Because he beat an over-the-hill Thomas Dulorme? Because he beat Sergey Lipinets? Because he beat Roman Villa?
Give me a break.
Give me a little eye test, your little evaluation, your assessment of Darren Boots Ennis and how skilled he is. Based on that quality of competition, you've got to be joking. Tim Tszyu's developmental process, his grooming process, tells me more about Tim than Boots' tells me about him, because Tim has been in there with two former champions in Jeff Horn and Tony Harrison.
He's traveled abroad, he's fought abroad, and won abroad against the U.S. Olympian in Terrell Gausha.
Fought his fair share of rough and rugged customers in both Takeshi Inoue and Hennis Dogan.
Tim's got two common opponents with Jaime Munguia back when Jaime Munguia used to campaign as a junior middle, and they gave Jaime Munguia a hard time, but Tim beat those guys easy.
He's coming off a lopsided points win over Brian Mendoza, who just gave Sebastian Fundora his first professional loss. He knocked his block off. He didn't have that luck with Tim. So Tim's resume and Tim's grooming process tells me more about Tim than Boots' tells me about him.
The fuck is this guy fighting that you're so high on him already?
Enough of the grab-assing. If nothing else, this is an opportunity for Crawford to move up to a 4th weight class and become a champion there. What's he gonna do? He's gonna fight Boots for a belt that he used to hold.
And who, pray tell, is gonna pay to make it happen? Who's gonna bankroll the fight?
Still don't know, because we don't know who Boots is going with. He was in bed with Showtime, but Showtime is now out of boxing. So is Boots gonna go with Matchroom? Is he gonna go with the PBC? Who's he gonna go with? Who bankrolls the fight? Whereas with Tim Tszyu, he's a big draw where he's from. You understand that?
Yeah.
Tim is a bigger draw, by and large, in Australia than Boots is in America. And with Tim, if you're willing to travel, they might be able to get you some cash. They might be able to get you some big money. That Tim Tszyu versus Terence Crawford in Australia is a bigger fight than Crawford versus Boots in America. So let's just...
Please stop pretending that Boots is a big name or that he's a draw here. He isn't.
The Tim Tszyu fight is a bigger fight at a higher weight for likely more revenue, more money than what you'd get with Jaron Boots Ennis. So let's just cut the fucking crap.
Cut it.
Stylistically, it's an interesting fight because Tim Tszyu has the look of a quite methodical pressure fighter, volume puncher, and a strong one. I will say when it comes to Tim, he does a lot more punch picking than your average pressure fighter. He's a bit more cerebral than your average pressure guy, whereas Terence has got two base styles, too. He toggles through them. He can be the pure boxer, the long-range sharpshooter, the outside fighter, but when he wants, he can also be that boxer puncher that wants to mix it up and get you out of there, mid-range to inside, because Crawford is naturally smaller than Tim, but because Tim is a lot greener than Crawford, nowhere near as experienced. It's a very good fight. Intriguing.
I don't know if it happens, but if I had to choose...
I do like a Tszyu fight more than the Boots fight, and if nothing else, Tszyu is more capable of making the numbers work than Boots can because Boots is not a big draw here, whereas Tim Tszyu, where he's from, he's a big draw. He's a big name. With a fight like this, you might be able to fill a stadium.
They were able to fill the Marvel Stadium with George Kambosos versus Devin Haney.
You could draw a crowd with this one. I think you could. Tszyu versus Crawford. It's a solid fight. It's a good fight. But we'll see if it happens. Crawford's not going to fight on the cheap moving forward. That's established. He'd sooner retire than waste his time on that.
You have to pay him, and you have to pay him well.